Section 24, or lesson 24, is on adding and subtracting decimal numbers. And the thing that you need to remember when you're doing that is line up the decimals. And then it's pretty much just adding and subtracting like you've been doing all your lives, pretty much. Well, maybe since kindergarten. In number 1, it says Irina ran 1/2 mile in 3.5 minutes. So we have 1/2 mile. So to run a full mile, we multiply that by 2, which means if we take 3.5 minutes and multiply it by 2, so that she's running 2.5 miles, or a full mile, then we'd have 6 plus 1/2 times 2 is 1, so 7 minutes. So she's running 7 minutes per mile, and then if we multiply that by 2 miles that she's running, each mile will take 7 minutes, so it'll take her 14 minutes. There were 180 people watching the football game. If 7/10 of the people watching the game were sitting on the home team bleachers, how many people were sitting on the home team bleachers? Well, we have 180 people, and 7/10 of the people were on the home team bleachers. So we're going to have 7/10 of 180 means 7/10 times 180. And this would mean 7 times 180 divided by 10. Or we could divide 180 by 10 right away, which is a little bit easier because then we can just do 7 times 18. So 7, this will be 7 times, actually we'll do 180 divided by 10 times 7. And that's going to be 180 divided by 10 is 18 times 7. 18 times 7 is 10 times 7 plus 8 times 7. Because of the distributive property, I could write this as 18 would be 10 plus 8. And this right here is still 18. And then the distributive property says that that 7 gets multiplied by each thing inside the parentheses. So I get this. 10 times 7 is 70. 8 times 7 is 56. 70 and 56 is 126 people on the home team bleachers. The Pacific team defeated the Atlantic team by a score of 5 runs to 3. What fraction of the runs were scored by the Pacific team? So when they're talking about what fraction of the runs were scored, you have to take that out of the total. So we have the Pacific team defeated, so we know that this score here is the Pacific. And this score here is the Atlantic. But total runs scored is 8. So fraction of the runs that were scored total, Pacific was 5 out of 8. So 5/8 of the total runs were scored by the Pacific team. In number 4, we actually get to test our skills at adding and subtracting decimal numbers. And remember, we need to line up the decimals. So no matter where the decimal is, it gets lined up. So things might be off a little bit. And the thing to remember too is if you don't see a decimal point, like in 123, it's at the far right-hand side after the last number. So if I'm going to add these up, I need to have 1.23, and the decimal point of the next one needs to line up. And then, so we'll have 12.3, and then the decimal point of the next one, which is at the end, needs to line up. So we'll have 123. Now, if you don't see anything, like in these spots here, you can leave them that way, or the easiest way is to just add a 0 so that you don't forget that there's something really there. Because 123.00 is still just 123. We haven't changed the number by adding zeros after the decimal point. So 123 plus 12.3 plus 1.23. So we bring the decimal point down. That gets lined up as well. And then everything else is just adding like normal. So 3 plus 0 is 3. 2 plus 3 is 5. 1 plus 2 plus 3 is 6. 1 plus 2 is 3. And 1 by itself is 1. So this is 136.53. The lowest average temperature for November 1st in a certain town is 41.5 degrees Fahrenheit. The low on November 1st last year was 38.6 degrees Fahrenheit. How much lower was that temperature than the average? So this is again subtracting decimals now. So we're going to line up the decimal points. So we'll have 41.5, which is the average, minus, decimal points line up, 38.6. And then once we bring the decimal point down, everything else is the same as if you were just subtracting regular numbers. So we borrow from the 1, that comes a 0, and that makes the 5 a 15. 15 minus 6 is 9. I can't do 0 minus 8, so I have to borrow from the 4, which becomes a 3, and then the 1 becomes a 10. And 10 minus 8 is 2. So 2.9 degrees Fahrenheit lower than the average. Number 6, we're multiplying by a fraction, which is like what we did in number 2. So we're going to take 4 times 2 divided by 5 is what this means. 4 times 2 is 8. And 8 divided by 5, we could find it as a decimal, but remember that divided can also be represented as a fraction. So we would have 8 over 5, and then if we reduce that, we would have 1 with 3/5 left over. So 1 3/5. Another way that we could have done this problem is to call the 2 a 2 over 1. So we would have 4/5 times 2 over 1. Then we would have 4 times 2 is 8, 5 times 1 is 5, and then we'd get 1 3/5 in the end again. So either way. In the second one, it says 4/5 divided by 2. When you divide, that means that it's on the bottom of a fraction. So right now we could rewrite this as 4/5 divided by 2 over 1, because 2 over 1 is the same thing as 2. And when we're dividing by a fraction, we flip it over and we multiply by the reciprocal. So 4/5 times 1 over 2. So dividing by 2 is the same thing as multiplying by a half. And then 4 times 1 is 4, 5 times 2 is 10. And if we reduce that by dividing by 2 on the top and the bottom, we have 2/5. 1 1/3 times 3/4. And we didn't do lesson 23, but it's really similar. The only thing that you need to do first with a mixed number is turn it into an improper fraction. And an improper fraction is like what we had in number 6. 8 over 5 is an improper fraction because the numerator is bigger than the denominator. So this is a mixed number that we wrote in number 6, which is the proper way to write it. An improper fraction is what you need to do to be able to multiply it, though. So when we have 1 and 1/3, what that actually means is that we have one whole shaded, and if I was to divide it into thirds, it would look like that. And then we have one extra third shaded. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4 thirds shaded. So 1 and 1/3 is 4 thirds. The other way to think about it is that this 1 is 3 thirds, and then 3 thirds plus 1/3 is 4 thirds. So this problem becomes 4 thirds times 3 fourths. And there's two ways to do this problem. One way is to eliminate common factors ahead of time. So since 4 and 4 are diagonal, 4 divided by 4 is 1, 4 divided by 4 is 1. And then 3 and 3 are diagonal, 3 divided by 3 is 1, 3 divided by 3 is 1. So 1 times 1 is 1, 1 times 1 is 1. Our final answer for this one will be 1. Now if you did not recognize that right away, it would be fine, and you would just have 4 over 3 times 3 over 4, and you would get 12 over 12, and anything divided by itself or anything over itself as a fraction is 1. So either way that you do that is fine. I want to show you both ways. And then we already know that 1 and 1/3 is 4 thirds from problem number 8. So this problem then becomes 4 thirds divided by 3 fourths. And when we divide by a fraction, we multiply by its reciprocal. So 4 thirds times 4 thirds. Reciprocal means that you switch the top and the bottom number. So 4 times 4 is 16. 3 times 3 is 9. And then 16 over 9, well, 16 minus 9 is 7. So I have 1 whole from 9/9, and then I have 7 left over. So this is from 9/9, and 9/9 and 7/9 would be 16/9. A square has sides 1 2/3 inches long. What is the area of the square? Well, we find the area by multiplying the two sides. So we have 1 2/3 times 1 2/3. So we need to convert these into improper fractions. So 1 is the same thing as 3 thirds, and then 3 thirds plus 2 thirds is 5 thirds. So 1 2/3 is 5 thirds. So this then turns into 5 thirds times 5 thirds. 5 times 5 is 25. 3 times 3 is 9. And 9 would go into 25 twice. That would be 18. And then I would have 7 left over. So the 2 is from 18/9. And then 18 plus 7 would be 25. So 2 7/9 inches squared, since it's area. Four ninths times 2 thirds. 4 times 2 is 8. 9 times 3 is 27. And there aren't any common factors of 8 and 27, so that's our final answer. And then 4/9 divided by 2/3, we multiply by the reciprocal. So 4/9 times, flip over 2/3 to 3/2. And again, we can do this where we find common factors diagonally to begin with. So 4 and 2 have a common factor of 2. So 2 divided by 2 is 1. 4 divided by 2 is 2. And then 3 and 9 have a common factor of 3. 3 divided by 3 is 1. 9 divided by 3 is 3. So then 2 times 1 is 2. 3 times 1 is 3. So our final answer will be 2/3. Now we could have just as easily have done it and simplified in the end. So we would have 4/9 times 3/2. 4 times 3 is 12. 9 times 2 is 18. And then those have a common factor of 6. 12 divided by 6 is 2. 18 divided by 6 is 3. Generalize, in this case, just means find the answer, and they're asking you to use order of operations. So, according to, please excuse my dear Aunt Sally, parentheses comes first. That's what the P stands for, so we're going to do this first. So 4 plus 3 times 5 minus 1 is 4. Then we would move on to exponents, but there aren't any. And then we would move on to multiplication and division. So the next thing that we do is 3 times 4, which is 12. And then there aren't any more multiplication and division, so we move on to addition and subtraction. So 4 plus 12 is 16. Compare. 16 minus 20 is -4. And on the left-hand side, it's in absolute values, so that equals 4. 16 minus 20 on this right-hand side, though, is -4, and there aren't any absolute values. So +4 is greater than -4. Find the perimeter and area of this triangle. Well, perimeter, you just add up all the sides. So 7 plus 24 plus 25. 24 plus 25 is 49, and 7 is 56. And perimeter has the same units as the lengths. The formula for area of a triangle is 1/2 times the base, which is 24, times the height, which is 7. The base and the height need to be perpendicular, and that's what the right angle tells us. So half of 24 is 12. 12 times 7 is 10 times 7, plus 2 times 7. 10 times 7 is 70, plus 14 is 84, and units on area are the lengths units squared. Classify this triangle by sides and angles. Well, these two marks here tell us that those two sides are the same length, and if two sides on a triangle are the same length, it's called an isosceles triangle. And by angles, we have a right angle in here, and that tells us it is a right triangle. So we could say that this is an isosceles right triangle. Terrell built a scale model of his house. The front door of the model is congruent, equal, or similar to the front door of his house. Well, when people build scale models of houses, they're typically smaller than that. So congruent would mean they are the same size and same shape. So if he's building a scale model, then it would be exactly the same size as of his house. So he would be building another house, which is not really the case, because it's not going to be the same size. He wants it to be smaller. Equal is not really a term that we use in terms of shapes. It's a term that we use for numbers. Similar means that they are the same shape, but one is smaller or one is bigger. Not necessarily same size. So I would say that the front door should be similar. It should be the same shape as his house door, but it will most likely be a lot smaller than his house door. Which of these is regular? A regular shape means that all the sides are equal and all the angles are equal. So just looking at this, it looks like all of the sides are equal. It looks like it's an equilateral triangle, and it looks like all of the angles here are about the same. In B, it looks like every angle is a right angle, but it doesn't look like all of the sides are equal. It looks like these two sides are equal to each other, and then these two sides are equal to each other. So it doesn't look like B is. And here's a test-taking strategy. Since you already know that A looks like it is and B looks like it's not, you can automatically cross off D, because obviously since one of them you've already crossed off, it can't be all of the above. So now you just need to figure out, is A or C a regular polygon? Well, you already know that A is, so most likely C is not going to be. And then you look and you say, well, this angle here and these two right angles here are clearly not equal, so it cannot be a regular polygon. So A. So B has angles equal, but sides not. And then C, we already know that angles are not equal. Even if the sides were, which it doesn't really look like they are, the angles are not equal, so it's not regular. In number 19, it says find x. That does not mean that you write this. Found it. Haha, very funny. That's not what they're asking you to do. What this is saying is, what is the value of x? Well, we can see that this right here is a straight line. So this entire angle from, let's say, point A to point B is 180 degrees. We know that this angle is 40, so we'll take off 40 from 80. And then this symbol here means that this angle is 90 degrees. So whatever is left after you take off 40 and 90 from 180 must be what angle x is. So 180 minus 40 is 140, minus 90 is 140 minus 90 would be 50. So that's what x must equal. So I'll know if people are listening to this rather than just copying it, because if you write this, you didn't listen. Does ray BA, so what they're saying is that ray BA goes from here to here. Ray BA does not stop at A. It just says that it starts at B and goes through A. Because it's a ray, it keeps going past A. Intersect CD. And CD is a line segment. So it does stop at C and D. If so, what is the point of intersection? Well, we can see right here that CD and ray AB intersect at point D. So yes, they intersect, and the point of intersection is D. Round 6.029 to the nearest tenth. Well, the 0 is in the tenths place, so that means I'm going to cut off the number right there, and I look to the right of that line, which is a 2. The 2 is less than 5, so the 0 will stay a 0. So 6.029 rounded to the nearest tenth is 6.0. .42 divided by 8 1/8, and it says estimate. So 24.42, since 0.42 is less than a half, we would round that to 24. 8 1/8, 1/8 is less than half, so we would round that to 8. 24 divided by 8 is 3. Name a set of numbers that include 0 but not -1. Well, we have the counting numbers, which start at 1, so that does not include 0. We have integers, which includes negative and positive numbers as well as 0, so that can't be it. But we also have whole numbers, and whole numbers include 0. In number 24, we have the cubed root of 125. And the cubed root asks the question, what number times itself 3 times equals 125? And since it ends in 25, I would guess right off the bat that it's a 5. So we can check down here. 5 times 5 times 5. 5 times 5 is 25. And 25 times 5, well, 25 times 4, that's 4 quarters, is 100, and one more 25 would be 125. So the cubed root of 125 is 5. In number 25, it says 4 squared plus 3 squared. 4 squared is 4 times 4, which is 16. 3 squared is 3 times 3, which is 9. And 16 plus 9 is 25. In number 26, we're adding mixed numbers. And my way of doing this, and this works for addition only, is to take the whole numbers and just add them straight off the bat. And then we'll work with the fractions. Okay, so we need to find a common multiple of 2 and 5. So 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 5, 10. So they both can be a multiple of 10. So we'll turn 1/2 into something over 10. We'll turn 1/5 into something over 10. To go from 2 to 10, I multiply by 5. Whatever I do to the bottom, I do to the top. So 1/2 is 5/10. To go from 5 to 10, I multiply by 2. Whatever I do to the bottom, I do to the top. 1 times 2 is 2. So this problem here now becomes 2 plus 5/10 plus 2/10. So we have 5/10 and 2/10. 5 plus 2 is 7, and then over 10. So we have 2 and 7/10. 1/3 minus 1/4. When we're subtracting, we still need to find a common denominator. So 3, 6, 9, 12, 4, 8, 12. They both can have 12 as a multiple. So we will rewrite 1/3 as something over 12, and we'll rewrite 1/4 as something over 12. So 1/3, 3 to 12 is times 4. 1 times 4 is 4. So 1/3 is the same thing as 3/12, or 4/12, excuse me. 1/4, 4 times 3 gives me 12. 1 times 3 is 3. So 1/4 is the same thing as 3/12. And then subtracting fractions is very similar to adding. You subtract the numerators, so 4 minus 3 is 1, and you keep the denominator, 12. Number 28, find the prime factorization of 84. So two numbers that multiply to give me 84. 42 and 2. 2 is already a prime number. Two numbers that multiply to give me 42 are 6 and 7. 7 is a prime number. Two numbers that multiply to give me 6 are 3 and 2. So the prime factorization is 2 times 2 times 3 times 7. And if we write that with exponents, we would have this be 2 squared, because there's two 2's being multiplied, times 3 times 7. The capacity of a small glass is 120 milliliters. How many small glasses can be completely filled from a 2-liter pitcher of water? Well, we need to know that there are 1,000 milliliters in 1 liter. So if this is 2 liters, this is actually 2,000 milliliters. And basically what we need to do then is we need to divide 2,000 milliliters by 120. And since we know that we want it to be completely full, we just know that the number that we get up on top without the decimal point will be our answer. So 120 won't go into 2 or 20, but it can go into 200 once. 1 times 120 is 120. 200 minus 120 is 80. Bring the 0 down. How many times does 120 go into 800? Well, 120, 240, 360, 480, 600, 720, and that's it. So 6 times 120 is 720, and 800 minus 720 is 80. So we would have 16 glasses with 80 milliliters left over, so it can fill 16 glasses completely. There is a 25% discount on bongo drums at the music shop. The regular price is $56. How much money will be saved? So we need to know what is 25% of $56. And we could do this 2 different ways. The easiest way is to recognize that 25% is the same thing as the fraction 1/4. So 1/4 of 56 means 1/4 times 56, which is the same thing as 56 divided by 2, or excuse me, 4. So over here, 56 divided by 4. 4 goes into 5 once. 1 times 4 is 4. 5 minus 4 is 1. Bring down the 6. 4 goes into 16 4 times. 4 times 16. 4 is 16. So $16 are saved. The other way that you could do this is to find out what 10% of 56 is, because 25% is 2 times 10% plus half of 10%. So if we have $56, 10%, we move the decimal point one place to the left. So 10% is $5.60. We need 2 of those. That would give us 11.20, and then we need half of one of those. Well, half of 5 is 250, and half of 60 is 30, so that's 280. Did I say 16 over here? I clearly wrote 14. Sorry, guys. This is another good reason why it's good to know 2 different ways to do it, because I wrote down the wrong answer over here. But when I was doing the math over here now in green, 1 plus 1 is 2, 2 plus 2 is 4. So I was going to end up with 14, and I remembered writing 16 over here, and it didn't make sense. So now that I know that I've gotten the same answer both ways, I'm pretty confident that my answer is correct that I've written down. So 1120 is 20%, 280 is 5% or half of the 10%. So $14 is the total amount saved.